Welcome to Creative Clarity, Season 2 of the original podcast, Intentional Harmony. Season 2 is all about talking with some of the most creative minds I can get my hands on. These people have two things in common. They're passionate about what they do, and they love to create. From writers, to musicians, to artists, to business entrepreneurs, you're going to learn a ton. My name is Katie Warren, and I'm a creativity coach who helps entrepreneurs stop playing small and start living the life that they love through their creative gifts. Are you stuck in your 9-to-5 job? Maybe feeling like you're not good enough to make a living off of your creative gift? You're looking for more? Maybe even wondering how you can start your own business in a creative industry? Then you are in the right place, my friend. You're going to hear me cover topics all about understanding and improving the creative process. You're also going to hear interviews from amazing creative minds, learning what makes them tick, how they overcome creative blocks, how to generate new ideas, and how to get inspired. Sit back, grab some coffee, and let's get to it. Hello, everybody, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Intentional Harmony, Creative Clarity. I am really excited to release this episode. It has been a minute since we had this interview, but life happens. So I'm really excited to get this out to you. I've been waiting to do it for a little while here, and I know you're going to love it. We're talking to Burris. Burris is an amazing band who just released a new album this November, and they're made up of the founding member and vocalist who we're talking to today in the podcast, Christopher Burris, and a rotating cast of collaborators. They were originally formed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at the LSU School of Music, and they're now based in New Orleans. Burris can be seen playing all over the city as an acoustic act as well as a full-fledged 6-piece rock band. Burris pulls influences from old soul to modern jazz, but the band really holds center to their eclectic sound and their gritty New Orleans tradition Southern folk mix. Following the release of their debut album, Meant to Be, in 2015, the group has since swept the South with new and innovative sounds. And they just released their brand new album, which you absolutely have to check out, and it is all linked in the show notes. Chris is such an awesome guy. I really enjoyed our conversation, and he played the French horn in school like I did, so I can't help but connect with a fellow band geek there. I hope you guys enjoy, and without further ado, Chris Burris.
Take a risk. Put yourself out there. So, obviously, if you're doing what you love and you're creating things that you really like, then that's awesome, and those are probably going to be the best works that you have. But as soon as you go and you take a risk and you write something that you've never written before, or paint something that you've never seen before, or just experiment with something that might heighten you to a new level, even just a life experience, if you can have the opportunity to take that risk, you should do it, because it'll probably make you a better creator.
How did you get started? When did you kind of get that musical bug in you and know that you wanted to do this performance thing?
Yeah, so my whole family is musicians. My mom and dad are both band directors. In fact, my mom was my middle school band director growing up. So a lot of people joke and say, you guys were born with mouthpieces, brass mouthpieces for pacifiers, but they didn't force us into music by any means. But of course, just growing up around it nonstop, I was constantly listening. And so when I was in middle school, up until about middle school to through college, I played French horn and wanted to be a classical French horn. Me
too. That's my main instrument.
I could sense it. We had that sixth sense for each other, right? Yeah. I loved it. I really do cherish all the memories I have and the things I learned studying classical music. But at about high school, I started my own rock band and realized kind of later on, that's really the route that I would kind of want to go to, which of course is a bigger struggle. And even though my parents are super supportive and great musicians, they're like, all right, we got the rock musician going there. When are you going to get a real job, kind of thing.
So you went to, did I see the University of Louisiana?
Correct.
Okay. So did you initially go for something else and then switch, or was it always music?
It was always music. I think I realized when I was 15, the first time I played a live show, even on stage, playing classical music for high school band, and then playing at my first bar gig, being on stage was just that moment of realization of this is absolutely what I have to do for the rest of my life in some capacity. So I went to LSU and studied music education because at that point I kind of was thinking maybe I'll be a band director, maybe I'll be able to be a professor, maybe I'll play French horn professionally. Like I was sort of open-ended until I really started to gear like halfway through college towards wanting to do popular music. Unfortunately, at LSU, they don't have any popular music degrees. So I just stuck through with my music education and I learned a lot of great skills. You know, it's good discipline doing that.
For sure. For sure. I relate to that. I was going for performance and then I flip-flopped to music business. Yeah, I feel like that music bug's always in your head. You know, you change course a little bit throughout the way.
Right. And like doing a performance degree and an ed degree too, they're so kind of geared towards one very specific thing. Like you're gonna play French horn for the rest of your life and it's gonna be this way. So the idea of like kind of doing a popular music or a media degree, that business stuff opens up the doors to a lot of other things, I think.
It totally does. Yeah. So when did you already have, now you're kind of unique with your performance style because I see you do acoustic and then you also have like a really large group that you get together and perform too. So did you build that band in college? Was it like gradual over time? How did that process go?
I pretty much built it in college. I think even since high school, growing up around my parents who listen to bands like Chicago and Blood, Sweat, and Tears regularly, I always loved that like big full horn section, big funk sound. So I always wanted that. But, you know, of course, like the songs start with me on acoustic guitar, and I have that in my heart too, where I just like one guy in a box playing on the strings and making people cry. So it was always sort of a battle, like which one should we put all our eggs in the basket for? But at LSU, I met all those musicians that are in Burris, the people that kind of just rotate through in and out and play regularly. We all sort of came to New Orleans together. They all studied classical or jazz as well. So we were all like in big band together or in orchestra together. So we kind of formed a bond in a lot of different realms of music and then just carried it onto stage.
That's cool. That's cool. And you chose French horn, which isn't exactly a jazz instrument. So I see you picked up acoustic guitar to kind of balance the two out.
Yeah, you're right. You put a French horn in my hands and I cannot improvise a thing. It has to be written down right in front of me, but I can improvise on guitar and singing, so that's good.
Same. And then you ask us to transpose and it's just like all hell breaks loose then.
Yeah.
So when are you like the main writer for all of the music, or do you collaborate with other writers as well?
I'm the main writer for pretty much all of what Burris does. The beauty of it though is that the people that I have involved with me are down to help contribute, you know, but still like understand that the integrity of the song is whatever I say goes.
Yeah, for sure.
I like to be open-minded to it, like, and we have a lot of different versions of each song. So I'll start the song just with me on acoustic guitar, and sometimes I'll write with like the envision of the band in mind, or sometimes I'll just write for the sake of the song. And when the guys come in and they hear an idea and they want to, maybe we could add this, or let's do this, like let's put this bridge in there. So it kind of fleshes out with their help for sure. Okay. Sometimes that's a slippery slope and we end up doing ridiculous music major things that don't make sense, but just to do it, you know, like we have something to prove.
Yeah. But it's a huge advantage that you guys all have that training behind you too. I feel like It helps you get more creative because you can think of, you know, the different possible ways to structure the song.
Absolutely.
So when you're writing, are you envisioning like the different pieces of the bands coming together, or are you kind of writing it acoustically and then seeing how everyone else's fit in, like after you've already done the lyrics and everything?
It's happened both ways. And sometimes it's an accident and sometimes it's really intentional. I'd say that it does line up in the best songs that sound the best for the band are the ones that I wrote with like them in mind. Sometimes I'll write with like a specific band member in mind. Like, man, Bob is going to love this part. Like,
oh, cool.
You know, and, or with the ideas of, okay, here's where the horn line is going to go. We'll see what they can come up with. But then, you know, sometimes I'll just write a song that I can't hear where the band would fit in, and maybe that song just does better acoustic. And another really good thing about Burris is a lot of the guys are very versatile. So our keyboard player also plays accordion. He also plays mandolin. So if it's like, hey, maybe this isn't a full band song, but can you play some accordion on it? And he's like, sure.
Nice. That is awesome. Super helpful. So, where do you feel like you grab your inspiration from? Because a lot of them I feel like are very personal to you. And maybe that's just like part of the craft of your writing and everything. But do they pretty much come from personal experiences or is it, from something else?
Yeah, I would say the two biggest influences, like when I'm feeling creative, are a song that I just listened to. Sometimes I'll hear a song and be like, man, I just want to go write whatever that emotion was that I just heard and do it in my own way.
Mm,
Um, and then other ones, particularly this album that we're releasing right now, Over You, is pretty close to my heart. It's songs that I wrote a couple years ago. I've been start writing. Some of these songs are like 5 years old, but we've just gotten to flesh them out and record them. But they were all kind of based around this one person that broke my heart.
yeah.
Biggest like heartbreak that I've ever felt. I've been fortunate to only feel like one really bad heartbreak so far, and that just kind of stemmed. I found that I was like good at writing about that emotion and just kind of went with it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love the Who I'm Thinking of song because that's on the new album, correct?
Yeah, right. It was the
Yeah,
season.
yeah. I love that. You can definitely like feel that emotion. Really beautiful job. So what happens so you guys are going through this big release and it's very personal. Is it hard to release something like that? What are the things kind of going through your head as you're like launching this new album?
Well, luckily I have a pretty good relationship with the person that the song is about, so it's not like too uncomfortable or anything.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think my mom is more worried about my emotional state, or like, are you sure you want to play that song live in front of all these people? Like, yeah. At some point, it sort of just becomes a song,
Mm-hmm.
kind of just like a moment in time that was fossilized that now I just play, and I of course still feel the emotions like when it's really at its best and it's sounding good on stage. Like I'll get back in that place, but it's not too hard to like release it. I don't think I'm more excited about just people hearing it, and I
Yeah.
think that that's what makes it genuine. If people can identify with that feeling for whatever situation that they might be in, then it's a good thing that I wrote those emotions
Yeah,
into it.
well, and that's kind of what I was getting at because that's the beauty of music. Like you need sometimes that really personal draw. Um, and that just makes it all the more better when people can really, connect and say, "Oh my God, yeah, like I've been there too."
Absolutely. Yeah, when one of my biggest goals is like to be like Paul McCartney could write a song that came out in 1964 and I could listen to it tomorrow and be like, wow, that is exactly applicable to my life right now and
Yep,
how I'm feeling. That's crazy. So I want
totally.
that to be a goal in my writing.
Yeah, I love that for sure. So what is it? So you guys have had a few, like a good handful of releases behind you. What was it like doing the first one?
The first album that we
Yeah.
did, uh, it was serendipitous. We were all in college at the time, so pretty busy, just with college life. But we got the opportunity through some people in Lafayette to go and record for free at this studio, and we by that point had been playing the songs around for about 2 years. So it was cool to like kind of take our live sound and figure out how to put it onto a record, which you can hear. Like there are some songs with like 6 minute long solos and things like that. We definitely took that live sound and kind of tried our best to capture it, but it was
Yeah.
fun. It was different too. Only a few of us had really recorded at that point, so it's a little uncomfortable the first time you're in there. You got to play to a click track, or you're hearing yourself really well in the headphones when normally we can't hear ourselves at all on stage or
Sure.
something like that. So it was definitely nerve wracking, but I'm proud of that release. I feel like it ended up coming representing what we were at that time
Yeah,
really
for
well.
sure. How did you guys end up finding where to record and like just getting to that recording point in general? Was it like connections that you guys had? Did you just kind of like call up a bunch of people? How did that work?
It was connections. It's pretty much been connections across the board. For the first album, we had it was sort of like a crazy moment where my mom had recorded with somebody and they mentioned this competition that was happening. It was basically a battle of the bands, and this company was hosting it, and the award was a free recording session. And so we were like, well, might as well do it. And so luckily my mom had done that session. We did the battle of the bands and we won, and we got that. But then that opened up the doors to new connections, through that engineer Jerry Lejeune in Lafayette. We learned about other engineers and other people who are doing mastering and stuff. And then in New Orleans, just from playing live, there's such a community here in New Orleans of live gigging musicians. And so just through that, like on Facebook and Instagram and meeting other people and networking, I had posted one day like, hey, I'm looking to record my next record. Who's out there? And somebody responded, and it was like, perfect. Let's go.
Amazing. That's awesome. That's awesome. I feel like that's just the music community in general. Like, that's what I love about it. Everyone's so willing to help each other out and like talk to this person for you and connect you with that person. So it's just kind of waiting and seeing what comes along. And
totally. And it's, there's a balance of trying to figure out, is this going to be the right producer or right engineer? Like, or are they only doing hip hop music and it's not going to fit with the singer songwriter? So you kind of have to feel it out. But I've gotten lucky in that the people that I've kind of connected to first ended up being people who like the genre that we do. So it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. So you do a handful of different kinds of concerts. So you do acoustic. You guys have done festivals, right? What are some of the other venues that you typically perform at?
So lately, and this was starting to become more common, is like private parties. And that's like very COVID-19 right now.
Yeah.
So in people's backyards, nice and separated. But I really like doing that because it's very intimate. It's usually either just me and one other person from Burris, like the piano player or lead guitarist. And we're able to kind of do a mixture of playing our own stripped down songs and then also like some cool covers that are stripped down that people would recognize. And, people are comfortable in their own backyard, so they like doing that. So that's been fun. We also always play a lot of restaurant gigs here. There's a couple wine bars that we'll frequent. And those are fun because people are they're just out to have a good time, And so when they come and they're like, can you play this one Dave Matthews song? Absolutely. It's fun to make people's night. We can play their request. And then I think my favorite thing to do, though, is to play the local original shows. So at the smaller venues here in New Orleans, there's a place called Gasa Gasa. Actually, they just closed down, unfortunately, but there's a couple venues like that, even Tipitina's or Howlin' Wolf, where we might share the bill with another local band and just kind of bring out all our friends and bring out all their friends and just have a grand old time. And I like that the most because we get to play our original music exclusively. And it's really
I saw the house concerts on your website, and I thought that was really unique. I don't think people have really tapped into that here in the Midwest. So I was curious to see, what that came about, if it was COVID or if it happened before.
Yeah, I know I have some friends in Nashville like that are just singer-songwriters, and so they kind of introduced me to that idea of one friend of mine just walks around, and when people will like call him and book him, and he'll go into their front yard and just play acoustic for them and their 4 friends sitting in the front yard. And it's cool because he's sort of like a modern day troubadour.
Yeah.
Going around into people's houses, and if they have you get to play some songs for them.
I love that. Was it like natural for you at first to just like show up and play such an intimate concert, or was there kind of like a period where you had to get used to it?
There's definitely a getting used to it period, I would say. Like anxiety is, of course, a part of performing, and just all the anxiety involved. Like, you got to set up equipment. You don't really know where to go. You don't know if you can curse on the microphone, or like just little things you're unsure of at first. But I feel like I've gotten a lot more comfortable with it, and people are really receptive down here, and so as soon as you play their favorite song, they're happy. They give you a beer, have a good time.
Nice. I love that. That's cool. Is it typically like a large turnout, or like when intimate, do you mean just like 4 to 5 people, or do you get like bigger groups of friends joining and family and all of that?
Yeah, we'll get bigger groups. Obviously, right now we're trying to keep it low key. Like, I did one in my backyard recently, and there were 10 people, and it was just my 10 friends. Like, come on, and we could do multiple and just invite 10 people every time.
Yeah.
But for sure, we've played a couple house parties in some bigger houses down like on St. Charles, or even in surrounding cities where it's packed. There's like 50, 60 people, even maybe 100 if it's an engagement party. And those are interesting because people are talking, they're doing like what they would do if they were just normally like at sort of a house party kind of thing. And
Sure.
we're playing in the background, but then it's fun to catch their attention, and then like you can kind of control the situation and be like, all right, now you guys are all listening to us. So now we're going to play some cool stuff. Like, it's fun. Either one is good to me.
That's cool. That's cool. Do you like taking requests, or do you like mostly playing your original music?
I didn't like taking requests for a long time, and it was because I was uncomfortable, just afraid that I would play it wrong and people would judge me or something. But being in New Orleans and playing restaurant gigs and things on Bourbon and Frenchman Street has absolutely opened up my mentality towards taking requests. Like, I won't forget the first time we kind of did one we didn't know at all, but a guy came up and he was a little inebriated and he was like, "I'll pay you $40 to play this Bob Marley song." And we were like, "Okay, for $40, yeah, we'll just fake it." I usually ask them, "Do you know how the chorus goes?" And they're like, "No, not really." And I'm like, "Okay, then we'll be good."
It only can go up from there then.
But it's fun, and one of the good thing about the band being versatile too is we all kind of know a little different genres. Some people really listen to Pink Floyd. I really like the Beatles. Like, I also like punk rock, so we can all kind of pull in, and if one person knows the song, they can lead it, and we can kind of just all get behind it and do it.
Okay, that's cool. So you do kind of switch off with covers on who leads and who comes in the background.
Sure. If somebody knows how to sing it better than me, by all means, here's the microphone.
I love that. And it probably takes a little pressure off you too, and you can just kind of go back and just chill out. So how did you guys start to build your fan base? What was the process from just kind of starting to play like some lower set gigs to actually like building a following behind you?
Well, location helps. So because I'm from Lafayette is like 2 hours west of New Orleans. And then, so I have kind of a built-in fan base there, and I go back a lot, as often as I can, to play shows at some of those venues and keep that fan base going. And then we all went to Baton Rouge for LSU. So we have like a group of people there. And then we all kind of moved over to New Orleans. So just the immediate friend group of the band in those three cities is already 20, 30 people at a show,
Mm-hmm.
And as they all bring a friend, and then as it just kind of multiplies, sort of getting involved with the local radio stations, local magazines, and local venues just helps build even more and more. So I would say it started with location and then just gradually sort of worked its way out of hustling, getting people to come to shows and trying music in front of them.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's a lot of emails, as soon as we leave the South and we go on tour, if we're going up to New York or something like that, just got to have a really shiny press kit.
Yep.
To send over to the people so they feel like it'll be worth booking the band.
Sure. Put some muscle into it when you're getting out of your own territory. Yeah. Are you guys typically kind of staying on the East Coast, or do you want to, or do you do at all now expand out to the other coasts and travel further?
We would love to. We haven't yet. So we've done quite a number of tours up the East Coast. And I think the idea behind that was, I know the idea behind that was just to continue visit the same cities. And it's tough sometimes to get 7 guys in a van, all at the same time. We all have different walks of life that we're doing. So it wasn't always easy to do that. So going up to those same places up the East Coast always made sense. And we have some of the band members are from Austin, so we've gone out to Austin a couple times as well, and that always works out because we got a place to crash. I would say that's a big important thing too. When you go on tour, having family or just people spread out to where like, okay, we can stay. We have a place to stay this time. We don't have to buy a hotel or something.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of family on the East Coast, so that works out.
Nice. Yeah, you don't want to always couch surf at some random person's house,
But I would love to do West Coast, and money is always an object, so it would be cool to do like a singer-songwriter tour up the West Coast. I've always thought about starting in Seattle and just kind of driving down all the way to LA and playing in between. And then the same thing with doing Colorado and all that area. I know we have a couple friends and bands around here that go up to Colorado often and will play around the colleges, and they've got a good following. Have you ever heard of Miss Mojo?
I have not. No, I'm gonna have to look them up though.
Yeah, they're awesome. That down. They're a good like party band, kind of good New Orleans modern funk.
Nice.
But it would be cool to follow them one day. Maybe do a double bill with them and see how they handle it in Colorado.
For sure. That's awesome. Do you typically have in your group other full-time jobs, or are you guys just music all the way and just kind of pulling in as many gigs as you can get?
Man, it's so funny answering these questions in the time of COVID because life is so different for everybody.
Yeah.
But typically, most of the band is full-time musician in some capacity. If you're gonna be a full-time musician, you have to be creative. So I teach private lessons on the side, and that really helps. Like, because on the weekdays we probably don't have gigs, so filling up my weekdays with nice private lessons really helps. And then just trying to, like, a lot of the guys play. They're not just doing singer-songwriter stuff like me. It's hard for me to play in someone else's band because I'm just writing my own music, right? But
Yeah.
they, like, on the trumpet, they can play in a number of different bands. So they're all just full-time, just hustling, trying to gig. And I think we have one person in the band that has, like, a full-time job.
Okay.
You can get there.
Yeah. No, that's so awesome. And I feel like right now it's been fairly rare to hear that. So that's really cool. You guys get to do that full time.
Yeah. I mean, now is of course a different scenario too. I think our bass player had just moved away and for another job, but it's kind of transitional at this moment. Like, I think we all know New Orleans is going to be here whenever the city opens back up and we can play shows, and so we'll kind of come back. But for the time being, we're a little bit scattered.
Yeah,
and that's okay because I can play alone.
Yeah, and it gives you time to kind of refocus on like writing and everything. So I guess let's talk about that. When COVID hit, how did you guys adapt to that?
Well, at first, for me personally, I went to Lafayette and kind of stayed with my family and my girlfriend at the time, and so I was really kind of locked into this just sort of home life that I had never had. It was like a vacation that I would have never taken, I think, because we work every weekend, right? Like, especially New Orleans, there's always a reason for there to be a party here, and there's always people out. So I was working like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, playing shows, so never had the weekend off, and so it was nice to have the weekends off to just like be home and start gardening and start cooking things. I really enjoyed that. And then gradually things sort of changed with the band, and I came back to New Orleans, and I've been actually thoroughly enjoying still being here and just like going for walks. I live very close to City Park. It's really beautiful. Noticed all the plants and like get inspired by that, and have done quite a bit of just like writing, not even songs, but just journaling and writing and poetry, things like that, because I have the time. And I always feel kind of inspired after I cook something or watch a movie. So it's been cool to have that time. And additionally, I think one of my favorite things to come from this is I've gone back and recorded just demos of older songs that never took off, or just like different versions of them or something. So it's fun to have the free time, I would say.
Yeah, it's like a blessing in disguise. I think COVID has been awful, but there's been like just a lot of beautiful things that have come out of it. And I think just talking with so many different creative people, it's like opening up a whole new window of creativity that we kind of like pressed down for a little while. So it just helped us take a breath.
You don't have the opportunity, to go for a walk and then journal about it.
Exactly.
Holding the car to go to another gig. So just having the opportunity was nice. And
has that shifted your songwriting, and not topics you write about, but like the style or anything with your songwriting?
Maybe not noticeable just yet, but I definitely have thought about it a lot. Like, I have a new intention that I'd like to achieve. I've written for the past couple of years about love, and selfishly about the things that have hurt me or inspired me the most. Like, and so I think I'm ready to not write about relationships for a little bit. And just with the state of the world, like, I think I'd rather write about like politics that I'm passionate about, and Black Lives Matter, and like people caring for people, and trying to sort of instill some passion and just like go with what all the people that I'm surrounded by, are fighting for right now.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And music is like a perfect catalyst to get that message across to people too. It's very impactful.
And it's I feel it's a balance of like, I don't want to be using this platform to promote myself. I want to use myself to promote this platform, so finding that balance is interesting, but it's what I'm trying to do. It's being in COVID has given me the time to kind of think about that and plan sort of the next year's worth of releases in that sense.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. So you said you write and you journal, along with music. Do you do any other creative things as like an outlet for your expression?
Probably sporadically. Like I got really into drawing plants from this like old plant sketchbook that I found at my mom's house once, and I did that for like 3 weeks really intensely, and then haven't done it since. So I think I go through these little like spurts of creativity things. I've tried painting for a little while, but the things that have stuck with me the most, I'd say, are writing poetry and cooking. I think cooking is always like, I feel sort of the same ideas of just not reading the recipe and improvising something and throwing that in there and seeing what it tastes like, and you get the result after. It's
Oh, that's
similar
cool.
to music to me, so I like
You know
that.
what? I never looked at that way before, but you're right. Yeah, it's totally just improvising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're reading the recipe, then you're learning too. Just like if you read sheet music, you're learning
Yeah.
something about the piece or like about music, and doing that, and you can kind of copy and paste to the next thing.
So true. Wow. Yeah. What's like your go-to thing to cook?
I love cooking Thai food. I love eating Thai food, so therefore I love cooking Thai food, I guess. And my dad and people for my birthdays have given me Thai cookbooks, so kind of just use those and look at that. And there's a really great Asian market close to my house that I love taking little field trips to, and just grab some ingredients like a TLC show. Okay, you get here's $50 in 30 seconds. So what can you grab? And just like fill up the basket and then see what we can cook with it.
So if there's like a Thai food competition on TV, you're going to be like one of those people that signs up right away.
Yeah, hopefully so. If I get that Netflix call for the next cooking show. I don't know. Sometimes the problem with improvising is that sometimes it does not taste good.
True that. Let's talk about like creative blocks and kind of those mind games as you're creating, because you are actively creating all the time, it sounds like. So what happens when you kind of get stuck? How do you cope with that? How do you deal with it?
I try not to get too upset about it. I don't really write songs like all the time. I know a lot of people talk about like writing a song a day and practicing that, and I know that I probably should do that, to really like pretend like it's like brushing your teeth. But also at the same time, I feel like I like the spontaneity of a song just arriving, and that's usually when they're the best anyway, and then going back and kind of fixing it. So I like I said, I try not to get too mad if I'm feeling like a block, and then the second that I start to feel like a creative moment, even if it's 3 a.m. or something and it's inconvenient, try and take advantage of it right then and there. And then that usually like kind of starts something. It gets the ball rolling, and I can create a couple other things after that. Also, I've been finding that like just stream of consciousness journaling, if there's just a lot of thoughts, especially right now, like election season and COVID and everything, just so many thoughts rattling around in my head that if I just write it all out, then it kind of clears the space a bit, and I can maybe work on something else after that.
Yeah, I love free writing. It was so hard to start, and then once you kind of got used to it and you didn't try to like control so much of what you were writing, it's really effective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also just so low stress. Like I'm not even gonna go back and read it. So just
Yeah.
write whatever you want. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you don't really have like a schedule that you stick to for your writing, which I think, just from what I've heard and experienced, that helps the creative process, because when we structure it so much, it feels like it has to happen. But because you guys you're an active band and you're performing and everything, do you feel pressured to write new songs all the time? Does that pressure kind of like affect how often you feel like you need to write?
Not necessarily, and I think that it's because I'm in a time in life and like in the band's career where we're not signed to a label, or I don't have a publishing deal, so I'm not really being forced to write. No one is like telling me like, if you don't write this song, then you're not going to get this money. So it's more just I have the freedom of kind of creating whenever I want, and then in the meantime we can just play gigs that are cover gigs. That's another way. If I ever feel like I'm not creating enough for something, just learn a bunch of covers that I really like, and then just kind of try and take from that or something, and
Yeah.
At least I'm playing, like, too. At least I'm singing and playing something and learning.
For sure. Yeah. Are you most creative at night or in the morning, or does it just completely vary?
I'm most creative at night for sure. Yeah, that I don't know that I've ever even written a song in the morning, to be honest. Sometimes if I'm writing and it's like maybe during the day and I get stuck, I'll go for a run and that'll help, especially if the song is to the beat of like a running beat, because then I can sing it over
Okay.
and over in my head. So sometimes there's some day creativity, but most of the time it's nighttime.
Yeah.
And a whiskey always helps, and.
Gets the emotions flowing, the thoughts going.
And I the past couple months, since I've had the weekends off, going into nature has really helped. Like it was cliche, but like sitting around a campfire, I had that experience recently, like for a week with some friends, and just kind of sitting around the campfire and going back and forth in songs was really inspiring. I found that like right when I get back from a camping trip or even there, I feel inspired to write something, and it's
Mm.
usually pretty good. Sometimes you
Yeah,
got to go back after the bottle of whiskey and the campfire and and fix it a little bit, but
for sure. Yeah, nature is definitely a catalyst for that. Yeah. Do you have any like routines that you do to kind of get you in like the mood to write, or like any processes that you like strictly follow?
not really. They come in a lot of different ways. Sometimes if it's just like I'm sitting around in the house and I'm just playing guitar and I find a lick that I really like and I'll just repeat it. Repetition, I guess, could be one of those tricks, like just repeating it until I get good enough to play it and then think of some kind of a melody to go with it.
Mm.
Sometimes if just a melody comes first, a lot of times I'll be driving like from back and forth from somewhere and I'll think of like, oh man, this is a cool little melody. So I'll sing it into my phone and then just try and get like as close as I can to what I can hear just with my voice, and then go back and kind of have to put it to chords. Um,
Yeah.
I do find that if I sit down, like if something strikes, if I sit down and I like get my notebook out and I really kind of make myself write it down, even if it's not good, then that helps it just continue and like sort of sound better after, because I can go back and reshape it.
Yeah, for
But there's
sure.
no real regiment. I lie a lot. I teach my students, say I always wake up in the morning and make a cup of coffee and sit down and practice my scales and then allot this time for like creativity. That's not true. I wish it was, but it's not.
So none of them can listen to this podcast then.
They know it's not.
You're gonna have an angry mob of students following you.
Right. Who really likes practicing their scales?
Nobody. What's the goal now with you and with the band? Like what are you looking forward to coming up?
Yeah. The goal will always be to be a rock star. So that's always the biggest goal. And I think everybody in the band can attest to that. Like at any point it's, hey, if we can make a full living playing nonstop, doing only original music on stage, like for thousands of people, yes, absolutely. But in a more attainable short-term way, the releasing the first half of the album in November, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm spending countless hours behind a computer just doing press releases and emails and Spotify playlists and social media ads, all that. So a lot of work in that department. And then I've been making music videos too, so that's been fun. So I have short-term goals to make a music video for each song that we release. Next year, we're going to release the second half of the album and another single. And then I think in between that time, my goal is to have at least 5 to 10 good songs ready to go and record again, so that we can just kind of keep the process going. Content.
Yeah, amazing. Busy, but it's good.
Yeah. And as soon as it's possible, of course, it would be lovely to go on tour to promote the music, take this record on the road and see what we could do with it. But such an open-ended question right now. It's hard to even sit down and do booking because you just don't know what you can.
Yeah, definitely. We're all learning to be resourceful, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you kind of want to tell people about the first half of the album coming out, the second half coming out later? Like this is your time to kind of just talk about it.
Sure. I get the first half of the album, to me, is like the saddest part of the album. So, you know, if you feel like you're listening to it and you're getting deterred because it's all depressing music, then just sit tight. The second half is going to be a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more rock oriented too. I tell people all the time that we struggle with a genre, and as much as the industry people hate that, I think that people listening and a lot of our fans love that because there's variety. So there's a good amount of variety on this song. Got some folk sounding songs, got some hard rock sounding songs, some good New Orleans inspired jazz, but we always have that continuity of kind of a live sound recording that I think you'll hear. So sonically it sounds the same, but the song quality is a little bit different. So look forward to that, and get on YouTube, do some streams, go on Spotify and mute it and just press repeat and do that over and over.
I'm excited. I'm excited to hear it. I loved the first song that, you know, I got from Dawn. So I'm really excited to hear it come out. It's going to be great. You guys have such a fun sound. I love your variety. I think you're absolutely right. Like, the people who are into your kind of music like having it vary and not being boxed into just rock or jazz or anything like that. So yeah, just keep doing you, because it sounds great.
Good. Thank you. Yeah, it's good to hear that encouragement, you know. Sometimes I'm sitting around thinking maybe we should just play folk music for the rest of our lives, but
then you'll never be completely fulfilled.
It's true, right? Yeah. And so what's important is to do what, you know, my heart tells me what we feel best doing, and so even if that's not mainstream, then that's okay.
Yep. And authenticity will trump mainstream any day. So, you know, that's definitely more important. And I think the music industry is kind of twisted and structured it too hard. And I think more and more people are kind of like you guys, just trying to break those walls that have been, you know, built up for so long.
Totally.
So I always like to wrap it up with a final question. So we have creatives across the board listening. A lot of them are musicians. Some of them are just writers or painters, or, you know, there's a lot of people on here. So I always like to ask, what is one piece of advice that you have for them regarding creativity? It could be something that you've learned helpful along the way, something that you've kind of experienced, but like, what's one piece of advice you have for everybody?
I would say take a risk. Put yourself out there. So like, obviously if you're doing what you love and you're creating things that you really like, then that's awesome. And those are probably going to be the best works that you have. But as soon as you go and you take a risk and you write something that you've never written before, or paint something that you've never seen before, you know, or just like experiment with something that might heighten you to a new level, even just a life experience. If you can have the opportunity to take that risk, you should do it, because it'll probably make you a better creator. Don't say no.
So true. Thank you so much again for taking the time, and link everything in the bio so people can go and check you guys out and hit all the streams and everything. But let everyone know where they can find you and stay up to date on all the cool releases you guys have.
Of course. So I am Burris, and we are Burris, the collective of Burris. And you can find us on burrismusic.com. That's for sure going to be the hub. Like, all the links are there. But we're on Spotify, BURRIS. And if you want the most intimate views, I think, of my life, then check out our Instagram, Burris_music. I'm always posting little snippets of me just playing in the living room or just walking around New Orleans, daily life kind of thing. So that's always fun.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much. And I hope you have an awesome night.
You too. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
All right, guys, that was a wrap for another episode of Intentional Harmony, Creative Clarity. Chris had some awesome tips and advice and just really great stories to tell. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely go check out Burris on Spotify. Go look up their website. Everything is linked in the show notes. They have that album released, and part 2 is coming out later. If you want to hear more about my coaching, you can go to KatieAnneCoaching.com. You can find me on Instagram at KatieAnne.coaching. I also have a free group to join on Facebook. It's called Intentional Clarity, and it's for women looking to find more clarity in their life, really tap into their creativity, and ultimately just live a life that feels aligned and fulfilled to them. So I'd love if you join. If you can't find it, send me a direct message and I'll shoot you the link. Otherwise, you can join from my website as well. If you have a second, I'd always appreciate if you dropped a rating for this podcast. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time on Intentional Harmony, Creative Clarity.